quickly be replaced with a brand new Trump economic boom. We're going to have another boom like we had. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We had the greatest economy. You know, there's never been a time with jobs better than we had pre-COVID. And then when COVID ended, and we did a lot to end it. We did things, therapeutics, we did things that nobody else thought were even possible. And when it ended, you call that a bounce back. Everyone immediately then goes back to their job, or they get a new job, but you have a big bounce back. Well, we get credit for that bounce back. He doesn't get credit. He likes to take credit for the bounce back, but he doesn't really know what it means. Somebody wrote it for him, but he wants to take credit. We had a tremendous bounce back, and it was a beautiful thing to see. People went back to work. We had that damn dust coming in from China, the China virus, and it was a disgrace. I mean, frankly, what happened to this world, the entire world, $52 trillion and millions of people died all over the world, and what a shame. But we handled it about as well, I would say, as any country in the world, and we bounced back for a lot of different reasons, and we bounced back well. On day one, we will throw out Bidenomics, and we will reinstate MAGAnomics. And we're going to bring manufacturing, tourism, and other industry back to New Jersey like it's never seen before. We were doing it, and we did it. There's never been a better time. Actually, your governor told me that. They've never had a better time than the 3 years. 3 years just prior to COVID. And then after COVID, the recovery was so incredible. We never had a better economy in this country, in the history of our country, than it was during my 4 years as president. And we're going to do something. I think we're going to beat it. Now, we have a lot of work to do. We got to do something about the fact that 20 million people have come into our country from prisons, from jails, from mental institutions, from insane asylums. And they're terrorists, many are terrorists. Other than that, I think they're actually quite a fine group of people, right? We're going to stop the Biden spending spree. He spends on things like the Green New Scam. We're going to halt his inflation death spiral. Think of it, one of the greatest inflations ever in history. If you were making more money, it doesn't matter because you were taxed at 50%. You got to make over that in order to pick up. That's why people are hearing, oh, our economy, his job numbers are fake. They're totally fake. They're fixed numbers. They're rigged numbers. Everything about them are rigged. From the elections to the economy, everything. And by the way, the one thing that's doing well is the stock market. You know why it's doing well? Because I'm leading in every single poll, and people think we're going to win. And the stock market, and it's been written about by Scott, some of the great people, they're writing that. If we ever lost, if this election wasn't won by us, you'd see something like in 1929. The stock market's only doing well because everyone thinks we're going to win. We had a great stock market. But it's going up because we're leading in all the polls. If bad polls start coming up, we don't want to let that happen. You know, they're trying to rig the vote through this crap they're doing. But it's backfired. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. I'm more popular now than I've ever been. Can you believe it? They rigged the whole thing with the Department of Justice. And every time I've been indicted more than the great Alphonse Capone. Scarface. Al Capone was so mean that if you went to dinner with him and he didn't like you, you'd be dead the next morning. And I got indicted more than him. On bullshit, too. Bullshit. My father's looking down. I had a father who was great. My mother was great. They had a great marriage, married for many years. That's one thing. I can't beat him on that one. He was married for a long time, but they're looking down now. They're up there in heaven, definitely in heaven. And he's looking down. And he said, how the hell did my son be placed in that kind of company? But it's okay, because the people of this country know it. We're doing great. We've never done better. People understand it. People, normally that would be a negative, but for us it's a positive because people, they get it. They need to do that in order to win because they've done nothing else. They have a bad everything about them. Think of one thing that's better. You look at the Afghanistan disaster, you look at the border, you look at the economy, the real economy, not the fake economy. Everything they touch turns to what? You shouldn't use that kind of language. Look. You can't use the word shit, okay? That's like Christie. You know Chris Christie. Does anybody like Chris Christie? Good. So I was in New Hampshire, and he was fighting. You know, he's like totally unhinged. It's called Trump derangement syndrome. I would say he was a major case of Trump derangement syndrome. But he was in there, and somebody from the front row said, "Sir, he's a fat pig." And I said, but nobody heard. The person was a nice person, but said I said, you cannot call Chris Christie a fat pig. You cannot do that. Please, sir, if you call him a fat pig once more, I'm going to have you leave the arena. And the guy didn't know what was happening. I said, don't worry about it. I'm only kidding. You know? But I said, you cannot call him a fat pig because you're not allowed to use the fat word. You know, you can use almost any word, but you can't use the fat word. It's career ending. If you call somebody fat, it's career ending. We're all fat. Except for Lawrence Taylor and OJ. They're not fat. They're not fat. They sure as hell weren't fat when they played football, were they? Huh? What do you think? I don't think so. They're great guys. So we're going to terminate the Green New Scam. We're going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to get our energy way down. Don't forget, that's what caused inflation. He let energy get out of hand, and it went to $100 a barrel. And now Putin also said, Putin would have never done that with Ukraine. But Putin now says, oh, man, at 100, he can spend a fortune on the war. If he kept it at $40 a barrel, Putin wouldn't have been able to do that. But Russia's made a fortune in this war because this man that we have that doesn't know what he's doing has allowed energy. And right now it's getting close to $100 a barrel again. You're not going to end the war unless you bring down the price of oil. But he doesn't understand that. And it's so simple. But Putin, that would have never happened If you look at you take a look at Xi, President Xi of China, talking about Beijing. Now, they've got ships circling, they have planes, but they never were doing anything. President Xi of China with Taiwan. And I said, if you do that, it's going to be so bad for Beijing. You don't want to do that. It's going to be so bad for Beijing. He said, but what do you mean by that? You have to think about that. You're going to have to think about that. Don't do it. And he would never have done it. Let's see what he does. But boy, they have ships circling Taiwan at levels that they've never had. They have planes. It's not very comfortable to be living right now in Taiwan. And so Russia wouldn't happen. That wouldn't have happened. And you know what wouldn't have happened? The attack on Israel on October 7th would not have happened. It would not have happened. But you won't have, getting back to our wonderful area that we love, you won't have to worry about Governor Murphy's 157 windmills. And you know, one of the best fighters on that is Congressman Van Drew. He has fought so hard. I don't know, he's around here someplace. There's nobody that fought that. Right over there, you'll see these things all over the place. They destroy everything. They're horrible and the most expensive energy there is. They ruin the environment. They kill the birds. They kill the whales. What are the ocean floor surveys for their construction that are causing tremendous problems with the fish and the whales and everything else? Nobody even knows what it is, but I think in 20 years, one whale washed up on shore, and then where they have these things, they come up all the time, dead. They come up ashore, yeah, he said, they remind him of Chris Christie. What the hell are you doing? This can only happen in New Jersey, right, Jeff? Can only happen in New Jersey. The electricity cost, it's the highest in the country. It's what you've got. We are going to make sure that that ends on day one. I'm going to write it out in an executive order. It's going to end on day one. But unfortunately, the Democrats in New Jersey have embraced Joe Biden's radical pro-China plan to eliminate gas-powered cars and trucks. Can you believe it? And force everyone into ultra-expensive electric vehicles that don't go far. I always say they have a couple of problems. They're too expensive. They're going to be made in China, and they don't go far. Other than that, I think they're wonderful. On day one, I will immediately terminate Joe Biden's insane electric vehicle mandate, and there will be no ban on gas cars and gas trucks in the Garden State. There will be no ban anywhere in the United States of America on gas. You can buy electric if you want. You can buy gas. You can buy whatever you want, and that's the way it should be. It was announced last night that Biden finally listened to me. He listens to me. You know, he does a lot of things. He's about 4 years late. But he says he's going to put a 100% tariff on all Chinese electric vehicles. Isn't that nice? Should have done this 4 years ago, but Biden is not going to put this tariff on their gasoline-powered cars or any of the other products. You have to put it on other cars also, not just the electric cars, because he's trying to make them work. You know, the subsidy that they're paying to the people, the subsidy they pay to people and to these auto companies, and you have hundreds of thousands of electric cars that are all over the country. I think you can buy them probably cheap if you want them, but they're forcing them on you and you can't do it. It's supply and demand. People don't want them. And some people do, and the people that do should buy an electric car. I think they're fine. I think they're good. I think Elon, he's a friend of mine, he does a good job, but not everybody should have one. If you want to take a nice trip from, let's say, New Jersey, and you want to go and visit me at the White House in a little while, don't go buy an electric car. You won't make it. Don't go buy an electric car. If you want to drive down to Palm Beach, Florida and see me and play around the golf with me, I'd love to do it, but don't take an electric car because you'll make about 10 stops because you'll be very late. Your tea time will be long expired. But why did he do this years ago? It's only a ploy to get beyond the election, and then everything will come crashing down because they're original. You know, one thing I've learned about politicians, and I've dealt with them for a long time, when a politician comes out with a policy and then they run in an election and they go back and say what they have to say to get elected, they always go back to that original policy. And you know what this guy's policies are. They are bad. They are really bad. And the funny thing and the sad thing is he really never changed. He goes through, like, who the hell would keep an open border? Because I think it's killing him in the election. Now, I may be wrong. Maybe this is a great political thing to have millions of prisoners and mental institution people come in. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe I don't understand. Maybe we all don't. Is there anything good about that politically? Is there anything good about high mortgage rates and high taxes? Your taxes are going to go up 4 times if this lunatic is elected. It's going to go up 4 times. And by the way, I have to say this. I have great respect for the office of the presidency. I never used to talk about Biden this way until he did something that you can't do. He indicted a very popular president. I mean, I was very popular. I got more votes than any other president in history. You know that. I got more votes than any other sitting president in history. On made-up charges and nonsense. You see what's going on, all nonsense. They've got local DAs doing it, but the local DAs are run out of Washington, and they're having meetings in Washington. They'll do anything to win. They think that that's going to win. It's not going to win, and it's really backfired. In fact, I heard they were going to do a couple of other things, and they said from Washington, don't do it, please don't do it. We're indicting him into the White House. He's going to be indicted into the White House. They said, don't do it. But I have to tell you, though, I was and am in awe of the office. I think it's one of the great places, great institutions, so important. But I have great respect for the office of the president, for the presidency of the United States. And I used to talk about him like a politician would talk. I'd say he's not doing a good job on taxes. He's not doing a good job on many, many things. Look at Afghanistan was such a disaster, most embarrassing moment. But I talk about it as a politician would talk about another politician. And now he did something that shouldn't have been done. I got indicted 4 times in a period of about 3 seconds. Anytime there's a plane that flies over, if my plane flies over a blue state, the following day I get subpoenaed to go before a grand jury, okay? No, he did something you don't do. You do that in third world countries and banana republics. It's not like it's unknown. And probably in many cases it's very effective. But they do it in banana republics. We never did it here. I could have pressed Hillary a lot harder. You know, she broke up her phone. She broke them up. She acid washed them. Bit bleach, right? Bit bleach. Nobody even knows what it is. So expensive. But I really thought, you know what? You got to have a country. But I'll tell you what he did was just not something that should ever be done, especially in the way when they make up stuff. You read this crap. Why didn't they do it 9 years ago, as an example? Or 8 years ago? They could have done it many, many years ago. And they waited till the election. They waited right into the middle of the election. They even waited actually to see how I was doing. And in all fairness, I was #1 throughout the entire process. We did not have a hard time. You know, we got it in record time. Did you know that? We got it in record time. It was the fastest anybody has ever gotten a nomination, I think, from either party. The fastest. We had, normally, if it was a normal thing, I'd be campaigning right now to try and get it, but we won it 2 months ago. And nobody's ever done it with that speed. That means you like me. You don't do that to your opponent. You don't do that to your political opponent. It's done in third world countries. It's done in banana republic. It's not done in the United States of America. So then I said, well, now I'm able to speak freely. And that's when I call him the most grossly incompetent man in government, the worst president ever of any country. The whole world is laughing at him. He's a fool. He's not a smart man. He never was. In prime time, he was considered stupid. I talk about him differently now because now that gloves are off. He's a bad guy. Should have never done that because it's so bad for our country. Should have never done it. But again, I'll say it for the second time. He's by far the worst president in the history of our country. You could take, I used to say 5. Now I say 10, right? I used to say, I think I'm going to make it 15. You could take the 10 worst presidents in the history of our country, add them up. The worst presidents, take them. Give me the 10 worst names. They haven't done the damage to our country that this total moron has done. Okay? He's a moron. And other country leaders who I know, they laugh at him. They can't believe it. They can't believe what they're getting away with. I would have never talked with that kind of disrespect for a president until he did what you should never do. We're supposed to cherish the office of president. You don't do what he did to try and win votes, to try and hurt your opponent so he can't win. But it had the reverse effect. I'm higher now in the polls than I've ever been. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Good job. Good speech. Good speech. No, I'm higher now than I've ever been. And we're going to keep it that way. And we're going to win so big. And we're going to turn this country around so fast. We're going to do it. The biggest thing we have is we have millions of people here that are criminals. They're criminals. Think of it. Venezuela just announced, and they had a new number, 67, now it's 72%. 72%, they're down in crime because they took their gangs, their gang members, they took a lot of their criminals and they moved them into the United States of America. Jail populations all over the world are way down. And these fools back there, the press, the fake news, they don't want to report it. You know why they're down? Because they're sending people in their jails into the United States. From Africa, from Asia, from all over the world. They're emptying out their jails into the United States. They're emptying out their mental institutions into the United States, our beautiful country. And now the prison populations all over the world are down. They don't want to report that. The mental institution population is down because they're taking people from insane asylums and from mental institution. You know what the difference is, right? An insane asylum is a mental institution on steroids. Silence of the Lambs. Has anyone ever seen a Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He's a wonderful man. He oftentimes would have a friend for dinner. Remember the last scene? Excuse me, I'm about to have a friend for dinner. Is this poor doctor? I'm about to have a friend for dinner. But Hannibal Lecter, congratulations. The late, great Hannibal Lecter. We have people that are being released into our country that we don't want in our country. And they're coming in totally unchecked, totally unvetted. And we can't let this happen. They're destroying our country. And we're sitting back. And we better damn well win this election because if we don't, our country is going to be doomed. It's going to be doomed. So I took hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs and taxes and fees from China and other countries also, not just China. Everyone rips us, all of them. The European Union is brutal. They all are brutal because they were dealing with people that didn't care. They had no business bent. They were politicians. They didn't want to rock the boat. European Union treats us very badly. They learned. We did a lot of things with them. Macron of France, good guy's a friend of mine, but he loves France. And he was going to put a tax on all American business, a very substantial tax, 25% on American businesses in France. And my people went, I gave it to Steve Mnuchin, I gave it to others. I said, go in and tell them you can't do that stuff. Don't do it. And they came back and they were unable to make a deal. I said, I'll give you another couple of days. Just tell them I don't want it. He came back. They said, can't make a deal. I called up Macron of France, the head. Nice guy, loves France. You know, likes France. He's a friend of mine. But I said, Emmanuel, hi, Emmanuel. How are you, Emmanuel? Oh, Donald, I love you so much. You're doing such a good job. I said, thank you very much. I agree. But let me just tell you, Emmanuel, you're putting a big tax on American companies doing business in France. You can't do it. Oh, it's too late. Oh, I wish you would have called me early. It's too late, Donald. I cannot. I said, yeah, you're going to do something about it. You got to do it. You're going to do it. I won't be able to. I said, let me just tell you something, Emmanuel. Are you ready? Every bottle of wine and champagne that comes into the United States, this was a Friday evening, starting on Monday morning, is going to be taxed and tariffed at 100%. Every single bottle of wine and champagne from France will be taxed at 100%. No, you cannot do that. I said, I can do it. It's done. I have an order right in front of me. I'm signing it. You have 10 minutes. Call me back. He calls me back in about 3 minutes. Donald, we are pleased to inform you that we were able to end that horrible tax. I won. You know how many deals I made like that? I made more deals like that. I made a lot of deals with telephones. You know, one thing I don't know, I mean, isn't it better when we don't read these stupid teleprompters all day long? You know? Biden can't get up with the teleprompter. We had a beauty we went to Ohio, and we had 45-mile-an-hour winds. The teleprompters were like a sailboat. You ever try and read something that's moving like 4 or 5? And then they blew off the stage. I said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with you for an hour and a half, and I don't have any teleprompter. And we winged it. And you know, the gentleman that I was there for, Bernie Moreno, ended up winning the nomination by a lot. And he's going to be the next guy, I hope, the next senator from the great state of Ohio, which we won by a lot. But sometimes those are our favorite speeches. And I only do this when I feel really comfortable with the crowd. And do I feel comfortable with you? I love you people. We are the same. We are the same. We are the same. But so I talked about France, but I do that with a lot. I did that with so many. I did it with Italy, where they were going to do something. They were charging us a lot. And I said, if you do that, we're going to take away your visa permits. And they immediately changed. And other people, I send people that are very smart in to do the deal. And they come back, sir, they will not do it. I said, they'll do it. You got to ask them properly. But and they're very smart people, but they seem not to get the job done oftentimes. China is building massive automobile plants. I'm sure you're going to be thrilled to hear this one. A friend of mine builds automobile plants. This guy, I don't want to insult him. This guy can't walk across the street, but he can throw up an automobile plant better than anybody in the world. I said, I want to see one of the plants. He said, well, you'll have to go to Mexico. I said, why? He said, the big ones are being built in Mexico. I said, what about the United States? No, the big ones are being built in Mexico. Biden has taken so much incentive away, and they're moving into Mexico. And what's happening is the really big ones are being built by China in Mexico to make cars in Mexico by China to sell into the United States to come across the border with no tax. I said, wait a minute. You mean the big automobile plants under construction now are being built in Mexico? That's right. Now, he didn't care. He builds them with it. He doesn't care. He just, he's a guy who builds plants. He's the biggest in the world. I said, so they're being built in Mexico, and they're owned by China, and China's running them, right? Yeah. And they're doing that to avoid tax and labor, more expensive labor. And they're going to sell all those cars into the United States. Yeah, they're built so that he makes the cars in Mexico, China, and they sell them in here. I said, that won't happen. I said, I will put a 200% tax on every car that comes in from those plants, and they're not going to do that because they'll destroy our automobile business. And Biden doesn't want to get involved. And those aren't electric vehicles necessarily. Those are gas-powered vehicles, which he's not doing anything about. Do you notice he's trying to save the electrical vehicle, but not the gas-powered, which is the vehicle that everybody wants. So you don't have to worry about those plants if I'm elected. If I'm not elected, those plants are going to close up every automobile job in America. You won't be making one automobile in the United States of America. And the United Auto Workers, who, you know, I'm leading in Michigan by a lot, because they're run by an incompetent man that endorsed crooked Joe Biden. And the first thing he does is sign this electric vehicle, this mandate, that way they're going to go crazy. They're going crazy with the electric car, costing us a fortune. We're spending hundreds of billions of dollars subsidizing a car that nobody wants and nobody's ever going to buy. And it's just a shame. You see it. It's so stupid. And it's the same thing with foreign policy. Look at what he's doing with Israel. Look at what he's doing. This man is destroying our country. He's destroying our allies. And you know what? I was tough on our allies, too, because our allies always took advantage of us. But once I got them straightened out, it was fine. I mean, we had NATO, and they weren't paying their bills. And they said, well, what are you going to do? He said, you know, Obama came in and he'd make a speech and he'd leave. Bush would come in, he'd make a speech and he'd leave. Trump came in, he made a speech and he went back and he said, you guys aren't paying your bills. And when I went back the second time, I couldn't do it the first time. I was in office for about two hours. You know, it's hard to go 2 hours. I think it was my second meeting was NATO. And it's hard to go immediately. But I said, I'll be back in about 6 months. And when I came back, I said, you're not paying your bills. And they looked at me, they said, well, you mean to tell me, because I said, you got to pay your bills or we're not going to protect you with NATO. And the press, the fake news went crazy. And you're talking about, hey, they screw us on trade, and then on top of that, we take care of their military. So I said, no, you have to pay your bills. And one of the presidents from one of the countries, 28 countries at the time, 28 countries, only 7 of them were paid up. The rest of them didn't pay. And the United States was paying much more than they should have, like by about 10 times. We were carrying NATO. So we get screwed on trade, and we carry NATO.